Welcome back to Seaman's Bethel, New Bedford, Massachusetts. The Quaker whaling merchants applied their beliefs in industry, thrift, honesty, hard work, and integrity. The result in the profitable business made them wealthy beyond belief. With their wealth, they built mansions surrounded by beautiful gardens, and artists were attracted to Bedford Village, and it became a community of some culture and refinement. As the whaling industry grew, more and more men were needed to man the many whale ships leaving port. At various times, the number of seamen in Bedford Village ranged from 5,000 to 10,000, nearly equalizing the population of the village. The lives of these whalemen were a quite contrast to those of the local citizens. Whalemen sought out gambling dens, brothels, saloons, and dance halls. Establishments which, as the leading citizens observed, were detrimental to the dignity and good order of our community.
Go down to the sea in ships.
The tablets you'll see us walking by mounted on the walls will look a lot like a gravestone. It's a good comparison because in a sense that's what they are. They are called cenotaphs, and the word comes from the Greek and it means empty grave. When the whaleman was lost or was buried at sea, their family and friends had no grave to visit. So if they wanted to, they could go and pay a visit to the whaleman's chapel, and they could pay their respects to their loved ones, just as anyone else would visit a cemetery. If you ever decide to visit here, reading the cenotaphs will provide you with some insight on perhaps how these whalemen lived their lives and how they died. A brief survey of them will highlight the dangerous life they lived while aboard ship. So many men overboard, and so many fell aloft, so many drowned, so many lost at sea. One cenotaph tells of a young man bitten by a shark to only die some hours later. If one of these whalemen survived the dangers of the whaling voyage and were lucky enough to visit foreign ports, the danger of disease was also lurking there. Cenotaphs indicate consumption, tuberculosis, yellow fever, and malaria, among so many illnesses claiming their lives. Whaling was so dangerous. Among those men who felt the need to attend service at the Bethel was Herman Melville. He came to New Bedford in late December of 1840 and stayed until he sailed out on January 3rd, 1841. He attended Bethel services, and the pew he sat in is still marked. It is in the southeast corner of the whaleman's chapel. In the end of Moby Dick's story, where Moby Dick ramps and sinks the Pequod, is modeled after the real-life experience of the whale ship Essex, which was rammed and sunk by a sperm whale. There is one big part of Moby Dick's story that helped to make the whaleman's chapel famous. But it's a result of Melville's big imagination. When Melville wrote about the whalesman chapel in his book, he described the pulpit as being suggestive of the front of a ship. But the pulpit when he visited was not prow-shaped. It was a typical New England box-style pulpit. So the pulpit in the whaleman's chapel today is not due to Melville's book, but to the movie which was released in 1956. When the movie was released, it was that pulpit in the whaleman's chapel. The only problem was when they arrived expecting to see something that did not exist, people weren't too happy to see just an ordinary pulpit in our chapel here, the Seaman. The New Bedford Port Society listened to the grumblings of visitors for some years, and they decided to build a mock-up of the pulpit, which you see here. Now, this is the pulpit that you will see described in the book and seen in the movie. The idea was that they would test visitor reaction, and it was positive.
Died.
Another very notable mention in this story would be the abolitionists. The Quakers in New Bedford at this time had a reputation for being abolitionists, and Frederick Douglass was one of them. He came to this house and this chapel in the 1830s after escaping slavery. New Bedford was known to protect fugitive slaves, and Frederick Douglass worked in New Bedford on the waterfront, caulking ships. Also, the Mariners' Home, that was built in 1790, the sign on the building is inaccurate by the way, was also the first house of William Roach, Jr., grandson of the founder of whaling. During the American 1760s Revolution, a lot of damage was done to the whaling district of New Bedford, and most of the British had burned a good part of the commercial buildings down, and William was assigned to come to New Bedford and rebuild what was destroyed. The house was actually moved from Water Street in 1850. It is now home for the Mariners and will be for years to come. I hope you enjoyed this story of history in the haunt, Seaman's Bethel and the Mariners' Home.
No, not this. The original tin roof, we had restored it, I don't know, 25 years ago. They removed it and they sheetrocked it. We literally covered this whole place in plastic, and we stripped the freaking ceiling with power washers. Literally, this was all plastic. It was like the biggest project we ever did. It was insane. Yeah, we stripped it and then repainted the whole ceiling. It looked beautiful when it was done.